Hello and welcome back to my garden. Today we're going to be doing a bunch of odd jobs here around the garden, jobs that need to get done. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because we got a lot, well, yeah, almost 3/4 of an inch of rain yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And things are still very wet. I just don't feel like getting wet and muddy today. And there are other jobs that need to get done here around the garden. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to plant up this, what is this called? Angel wings. I don't know if you guys ever heard of angel wings before. This is the first time I've ever heard of it. My wife just purchased a bunch of these with a bunch of other plants, annuals, to put in some hanging baskets on our various rails. I've shown some of you guys some of these recently. She did a couple of containers too by the back door in another video. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch that video. I think it was the one where I did a little tour of the back deck. So recently I watched a video which sort of perturbed me. And if you hear a lot of background noise, I do apologize. There's some construction being done somewhere behind me here. I saw a video by a YouTuber whose name shall not be said. But I disagreed with his video. And the video was, the thumbnail was gardening is hard. And then I think he changed the title, but the title originally had something to do with it, gardening being hard. And I think he later put it on I failed my garden. There's a lot of negative connotation there. And I watched his video and it's just, I saw the point he was trying to make. The way he was presenting it was very negative. And I didn't like that because that, I think, pushes people away from gardening. Whereas myself and many other people are trying to attract more people into gardening because gardening really isn't hard. You can do things in gardening the hard way. And you can have problems gardening certain things, certain ways. It gets a little more complicated. But in general, gardening is not hard. Brain surgery is hard. Astrophysics is very difficult. I have no idea how they figure out the math to shoot a man to the moon when the moon's a moving target and there's so much distance, and yeah, it's just beyond me. But gardening, not really hard. And with this simple pot right here in front of me, I'm going to show you how easy it can be. The very first thing we're going to do, which is not entirely necessary. If you're a beginner gardener, this isn't necessary. This is just something I like to do for various reasons. And if you watch a bunch of other YouTube videos, you'll probably see the same things. But we're basically going to take some broken pottery and we're going to put it over the hole that's at the bottom of the pot here. We're not going to cover the hole. We're not looking to block the drain hole. That would be a bad thing. But what we're looking to do is just place the broken pottery over that hole to prevent a lot of potting soil from either A, escaping from that hole, or B, clogging that hole, which can happen. Not often, but it can happen. So if you put a couple of pieces of broken pottery in the bottom there, it prevents the potting soil from falling out, and it prevents that one singular hole from clogging up. First thing I'm going to do is start filling this with some potting soil. And if you've never gardened before, and you decided to plant up something like angel wings or something else into a pot, your first go-to is potting soil. There's a bunch of videos out there about why you should use potting soil over something like, let's say, topsoil. And I'm not going to bore you with that today. All right. So we're not completely filled to the top, but I don't want to be completely filled to the top. Much as when you put an ice cube or a bunch of ice cubes in water and you see the water level rise in a glass, basically the same thing's going to happen here because this pot is going to displace some of this soil. That's the reason I don't fill it to the top. I've learned that from experience, a little bit of the hard way too. Now, since I know nothing about this plant, how do I know I can put it into this pot, and how do I know how big it's going to get? Pretty much every single manufacturer out there, vendor, whatever you want to call them, produces one of these tags for their plants. This just happens to be Proven Winners, but I've seen the same thing with many other brands that you can get at your big box stores. So this is angel wings. It gives you the Latin name. Another common name for this apparently is also sea cabbage. I didn't know that. Just read it on the back of the tag here. It tells me it forms into a mound. So it's not going to be a really tall plant. It's just going to be sort of a mound. So that sounds nice. It says grown for foliage. It does have some nice leaves on here. It tells me the height is going to be anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. So it will, think of it almost maybe as a triangular mound. How wide does it get? It says the spacing should be about 12 inches apart. Your maximum that you want to go is 16 inches apart. So that's kind of nice that they give you that information, but I'm guessing the plant gets probably 12 inches wide. So it would be about yay big. And again, 12 to 18 inches high. That range that they give you is a guesstimate. Your plant may not grow to 12 inches, may only go to 6 inches, may grow to 18 or more. This is what all the manufacturers do. They give you averages here. It tells me here the zone is an annual, except in zone 8A to 11B. So theoretically, me being an 8A, I could probably overwinter this in the greenhouse if it survives the year. And then I could bring it out next year and we could grow it on. And maybe we will do that as a sort of an experiment. It says it's hardy down to 25 degrees. So as long as we don't get any winter nights that are below that and it doesn't get a frost on it, again, it may die back down to the ground, but that's a whole nother story and we can get into that at a later point. But it tells me all this great information here. It says fertilize regularly for best results. We can talk more about fertilizer in a whole nother video, but it's not necessary at this point. The potting mix that I'm using already has some natural fertilizer in it, back guano, cow manure, things like that. So that's good. Water, normal. I don't know what that means, but if you see the leaves drooping and it looks a little sad, probably give it a little bit more water. Light, full sun, so I can leave it right here on this table on my back deck where it's going to get blasted from sun probably from 11 o'clock in the morning right on until 6, 7 o'clock at night. Features deadheading not necessary, foliage interest, drought tolerant. This is good, so if I forget to water the pots for a few days, the plant's not going to die. It's not going to roll over and die on me because it is a drought tolerant plant. It says uses containers and then care easy. A lot of the information about a particular plant can be found on a plant tag. So you don't need to go out and buy a lot of books or watch a lot of videos before you decide you want to start gardening. You can just go out, buy yourself a plant, get a lot of information off the tag, and then go to town. Let's see, we can pop this out of the container here. Ooh. Now, this right here is called root bound, and hopefully that shows up on the camera. So the roots grow out to the edge of the container, and then they start spiraling around inside the container because the roots have no place else to go, yet the plant wants to continue to grow. So I'm just going to tease, and by tease, I mean just tease the roots out. You don't have to tease them all. It's just a few. And this isn't very hard. This is pretty easy. And I learned about this from watching maybe a 20-minute video, if that. My interest in gardening, for those of you who don't know, started when I ran across Gardener's World on Amazon. It's an English gardening program. Well, they teach you and they talk about plants and gardens and all that good stuff, but they do lots of segments on potting up plants. And there's a ton of YouTube channels out there. And there's probably about, I don't know, at least a dozen, if not more, regular YouTube channels that I do follow, where I learn a lot of these techniques that I'm showing you guys at the moment. And if you're an experienced gardener, you've seen all this before. If you have comments of something you see me doing wrong and or want to throw in your own 2 cents, please feel free to do that in the comments below. Me personally, I'm not going to fill this right up to the very rim. I think I want to maybe put a little bit of mulch on the top here. It'll also help the pot retain moisture. Now in this case, we're dealing with a glazed pot. Glazed pots will not evaporate moisture, and that's a whole nother topic again I can go into. I may wind up doing that, but I think it's got enough soil right now. It looks pretty good. I'm going to take this plant tag and I'm going to stick it right back into the pot for a couple different reasons. One, I will forget what kind of plant this is because I'm getting old and senile. And two, if somebody else sees this plant and says, oh, what is it? They can pull out the tag, they can look at it, and they can put the tag back, that kind of thing. Now, as I just mentioned, we did get rain, and so this plant was already moist. But watering the plant like this will help the soil settle in around those roots. And I don't have to worry about it watering it now for the next probably 3 days. That was terribly hard. Let's move on to the next task. If you see me flailing around and swatting a lot, it's because the deer flies are out and they suck. Literally. It's actually the female deer fly that bites and draws blood. The male just goes after pollen. Anyways. One of the other things I have to do here is pot up my 2 remaining geraniums. If you've never gardened before, you may ask yourself, how did I know how to grow geraniums? I didn't. It's simple as that. I had no clue how to grow geraniums, but I knew it was a plant I wanted to try. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I bought some seeds online. It was a pack of 10 seeds, planted those 10 seeds in a seed tray, started them. 5 came up. So I had a 50% germination rate. That's okay. For $5, let me just put this in context. Every geranium plant I've seen goes anywhere from $15 to $25. For $5, if I have had got one. So if I spent $5 on a package of seeds and only had 5 out of those 10 germinate, that's $1 per plant. That's a huge savings between $1 per plant and $15 per plant. So I did a little bit of homework. I bought the seeds, started in a seed tray. They eventually got big enough I had to put them in their own individual little pots. This variety is Maverick Coral, and now it's getting large enough that I want to put it into a bigger pot, because according to the package, if I remember correctly, these get to anywhere from 12 to 15 inches wide and high, something along those lines. So I believe this is a 12-inch pot. So this should suffice for this geranium for the rest of the year. And what I'm doing right now is, again, experienced gardeners, you all know this simple process called up-potting. So we're going from a smaller pot to a bigger pot. Pretty simple. I'm going to, whoop, there we go. Pop it right out. Hopefully you can see this. We have some good roots down there. And I'm going to put it right there, I think. So it's close to the rim, but I haven't pressed anything down yet. And soil will settle. And I've learned this through experience in the hard way. But if you pay attention to various YouTubers out there, they will tell you the same thing. I'm actually going to press down the soil around the plant just a little bit, and I'm going to finish filling up the pot. Now again, I didn't bring it all the way up to the rim because I intend to put some mulch in here to again help with water retention in the pot itself. This is a terracotta pot. For newbie gardeners, they breathe. They don't actually breathe like me and you. Air can transpire, and so can moisture transpire through the pot itself. So it will lose moisture quicker than a plastic pot, which nothing goes through plastic, right? So if I put a little layer of mulch on top of this at some point, it helps retain that moisture inside the pot just a little bit longer. Let me do the other one. Just like you saw me do with that first pot up on the deck, I'm going to put a couple of crocks or broken pieces of pottery on the bottom, not trying to cover that hole, going over and around that hole. So water can still escape, excess water can still escape the pot through that drain hole, but hopefully it'll prevent any soil cloggage of that drain hole and or prevent excess soil from leaving that drain hole. Like that, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Tuck it in. Let's give this a water. Terribly difficult. Now, if you've never gardened before, some of what I just did may seem a little daunting, maybe. But I have a sister who's never gardened before in her life, and over the last few years, she's tried her hand at gardening, and she's succeeding. I've given her some seeds, she puts seeds in pots, things come up, she waters them. It's not terribly difficult. Now, that's not to say that everything in gardening is super easy. And this next thing that I'm going to do, when I first saw it, seemed a little daunting to me until I actually started doing it. And then I went, oh, that's easy. Let me show you. Well, what I'm doing is I'm just filling up these little pots, these little plastic pots, with some potting mix. I'm going to start up potting my seedlings here. These are Blue Victory Salvia, and they're a size now that I want to take them out of this tray and put them into their individual pots. Basically, you're going to try to lift these little seedlings out of the tray. See, if you could see, I'm not going right up against the plant. I'm going a little further away from the plant. And I'm just going to push up from underneath. And now what we're going to do is grab the seedling by the leaf. And come on. It's got really good roots in here. There we go. Hopefully you can see now I have a plant. The reason I grab it by the leaf is because if you grab it by the stem and the stem breaks, it's no bueno. It's gone. It's not going to work anymore. If you grab it by the leaf and a leaf breaks off, you can see we have lots of other leaves. So it's not the end of the world. Next thing I'm going to do, make a little hole in my pot here, tuck that root in, tuck that plant in, press the potting soil around it, and voila. That wasn't really hard. Like I said, the first time I saw it, the first few times I saw it, I felt a little intimidated, and that's a strong word. I felt a little, how do they do that? And again, once you do it, even just one time, I was like, oh, that's simple. Yeah, be careful, have a little patience, take your time, be gentle, and there you go. Now this is good to sit into this pot probably for another 2 to 3 weeks at least until I plant it out, maybe longer. We'll have to see how quickly it grows. And of course, don't forget to water. Let me show you something that I've never grown before and the way I'm going to grow it. Right here, I have 2 redbud trees. These are forest pansy redbud trees, but they are very young. And currently they're in very small pots. But my wife and I do not know where we want to put these 2 trees yet. So temporarily, my plan is, and I'm not going to bore you guys with this today, but I'm going to put these into larger containers. Let's say 10, 15 gallon containers. So you're talking maybe a 20-inch wide container, 20 to 24-inch wide container. And maybe leave them here in the vegetable garden for at least a year or 2. And then at that point, these should be taller. They should be thicker trunked. And then I can plant them somewhere out in the garden. And I did do some homework on this last night, and it said red buds do well in containers. A little bit of homework, a little bit of research on the interwebs can make anything that seems relatively daunting relatively easy. That's what I'll do sometime this week, is just put these guys in bigger pots and then grow them on, and then we will see what happens. Now, this is not to say that everything about gardening is easy and that you won't make mistakes and you won't have failures. So late this winter, I started growing my onions in the greenhouse, and once they got to an appropriate size, I brought them out here, and this is one of the beds that I planted them into. Now there's 2 varieties here, and I don't know if you guys can hopefully see the plants here, but some of these look really good, like this one right here. But then I have a blank spot here where there should be onions. I have a blank spot here where there should be onions. There should be an onion here. There should be onions all in here, but I'm missing onions. And this could be because of a variety of reasons. Birds could have pulled out the young seedlings. The young seedlings may not have had a very strong root system, and therefore if they didn't get watered quite just enough, they may have died. One of the challenges we face when we're gardening is a thing called transplant shock. So I'm taking it from its nice container where it's been happy, where it's been growing, where it's been absorbing nutrients, and I've now removed it from that and I've dropped it in a completely foreign environment. It needs a minute to acclimate to its new environment, whether it be a raised bed, another pot. But again, there's so many different environmental factors, and whatever onion was supposed to be here may have had really good roots, but maybe a bird, a mourning dove came by, ripped it out of the ground, or who knows what. Maybe I didn't water the bed quite enough that one day and it didn't get the appropriate water, and therefore it wilted and died. These things happen. Doesn't make gardening hard. It's just a fact of life with gardening. You will have successes, you will have failures. Learn from your failures and grow from them. These right here are my basil. Specifically sweet basil. How did I know how to grow these? Watched a couple of videos. I got a book on vegetable gardening that I kind of read. And then I read the packet, and it said to put the seed a certain depth into the soil and space them so far apart. Now, if you went back and watched my video when I did this, the seeds were a little old, so I oversowed, which means I put a lot of seeds really close together. And then as these seeds started coming up, I did what's known as thinning, where you remove the plants you don't want. So there were like 4 or 5 plants coming up here. There was like, I don't know, 8 coming up over there. And I know the sweet basil is roughly a foot between each plant because they will grow to a certain size and height. Now there's 2 seedlings down there, I think they're in shot, that are relatively close together. I will thin or remove one of them, probably the one in the middle, but I want to make sure that the one that's a little further towards you guys grows to a certain size. And all this knowledge is really gained from reading the instructions on the packet. Maybe get yourself a book on vegetable gardening, or just watch a bunch of YouTube videos, because there's some really great YouTubers out there doing really great tutorials on how to grow everything. Let's head out to the flower garden. You know, it's hard walking in between all these plants without stepping on them. Right here I have a peony which flowered. The flower is going over, so I'm just going to simply remove that, and I'll come back and pick that up at a later time. And the reason I do that is so a plant can get bigger and deeper roots. I've learned this from watching countless YouTube videos, reading countless books. It's not very hard. Just cut it back to a set of leaves if you want. And this way it also makes the plant look a little neater and tidier. I have a couple over here that I want to snip. And that's it. That wasn't hard. This here is my climbing rose, the Generous Gardener, and this is the first year it's putting on this kind of show. It's never grown this tall before, and it's also never put on this many flowers. One of the things I'm going to do to help with the health of the plant and also hopefully spur it on to create more flowers is going to do deadheading. You deadhead a plant to either spur it on to create more flowers or to prevent it from going to seed, which then takes away from it creating bigger and stronger roots. But you may think to yourself, whoa, I must have had a mother or grandmother, father or grandfather, somebody who taught me how to grow a rose. No, and I didn't go to school for any of this. Again, I just started gardening like 8 years ago. I learned by watching YouTubers, research on the internet, reading a bunch of books, and I'm still learning. I ran across a channel that I've started watching semi-regularly, Fraser Valley Farm, I believe it's called. I think that's what it's called. If I remember, I'll put it up here on the screen. I've mentioned the channel before, but Jason is the proprietor, and he grows roses. He knows a lot about growing roses. He explains what he does with the roses in a very simple way, at least I find. I've watched some of his channel, I've watched some of his videos, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and I understand that. And then there's other times I have no idea what he's talking about, but then I'll watch another video from the RHS, I believe, which is Royal Horticultural Society. It's over in the UK. If you're from the UK, hello. I have international viewers, not many, but I have some. But they were talking about black spot on roses, and the one head gardener of whatever garden it was saying that if you see black spot on a rose bush, if it's just in a little area or if it's just a little bit, don't panic, don't worry, you don't have to go to extraordinary measures. It's actually almost natural. Whereas years ago, I would get a little anxious about black spot on my roses. Now, if I see a little bit of black spot on the rose, I don't get too worried. If I start seeing the rose put on a lot of black spot, or a lot of the leaves get covered with black spot, then I get very concerned, and then I may spray it with an organic solution to reduce or remove the black spot. But overall, I mean, I already see a few leaves here with a little bit. I'm not panicking. Not at all. We just had a good rain. We're going to have sun for the next few days. The plant in general looks very healthy. I will keep an occasional eye on it as I walk by it in the mornings or the evenings, but as long as it keeps doing what it's doing. This is one of my 3 pawpaw trees. I'm not going to show you the other 2 because they're quite embarrassing, but this tree right now should be absolutely covered in leaves. Unfortunately, you see quite a bit of it looks bare, and that's because of my friendly neighborhood deer. Deer are not supposed to eat pawpaws, at least not the leaves, according to the book. New gardeners, let me tell you, the book lies. So apparently 1 or more deer came through my garden and they went to town on this plant. I think I had a couple of small broken branches, nothing too traumatic. I had a larger broken branch on my other pawpaw tree, which I had to prune off. I already see a lot of new buds forming on this, so this is good. The plant is responding. It's going to put out new leaves. My suspicion is it was a baby deer who didn't know or hadn't read the book that says you're not supposed to eat the leaves yet, so it ate a lot of the leaves. This is not hard. This is a challenge, and I've sprayed the tree with deer repellent, an organic deer repellent, and hopefully the deer now stay away from this tree, or at least the babies learn to steer clear of this tree for the rest of the season. We will see. This is my fig tree. And all this top growth, all these branches right here, dead as a doornail. They were growing fine, but then something happened earlier this year, and these 3 main trunks all just seemed to die. But I have new growth down below. Some people will say growing figs is very easy. I've never had a problem up until this year. Now, I don't know. So I'll do a little homework, I'll do a little research. But I don't think growing figs is hard. This is just a little setback that I need to learn from, so that those branches coming up grow as big as these branches, if not larger. Here's a Jonathan red apple tree, and when I put this guy in the ground, I did it as bare root, put it in the ground, and I think the first year the deer nibbled on it, so I then got smart and I put this fence around it. I don't like this fence, but it is what it is, and one day this tree will be large enough that I could take the fence down, because the deer won't then be messing with a lot of the young tender leaves. They'll be much higher and life will be wonderful. But this is just learning from experience. And to go back to that original YouTuber that kind of set me off here, his point was, because I went back and I watched his whole video, as much as I didn't like it, to try to be fair. And really his point was, which I could see him trying to make, if you put in the work, if you learned a little bit about the plants that you're trying to grow, if you learn about gardening itself in general, none of this is really hard. It doesn't take a lot of hard work. It does take work, depending upon what you want to do with your garden. If you want to plant out 3 apple trees into your backyard and just grow 3 apple trees, if that's all you want to do, go for it. And you'll learn about those apple trees, and you'll learn if your trees will be susceptible to pests and how to treat for that. Thankfully, I've never had to deal with any sort of fungal issues. I did have an aphid infestation on this tree last year and early this spring, but thankfully, ladybugs came by and wiped out all the aphids. So I no longer have an aphid problem on this tree. It's just about learning about what it is you're planting, where you're planting it, how you're planting it, what soil conditions you're planting. It all seems like a lot, but it's not really a lot. Take a little bit of time to learn about things with gardening. Sky's the limit. You can go pretty far, and it's not all that hard. I wrote a book about Victory Gardens. I think it was last year or the year before. I think it was the year before. Either way, if you want, you can go over to Amazon. You can pick yourself up a copy of Victory Gardens. Back in World War II, the US government put out several pamphlets on how you can garden in your own backyard, grow your own fruits and vegetables in your own backyard. And they gave you a list of plants to try to grow, what conditions they need, what you need. It was like it was a step-by-step guide, basically, on how to start your own garden in your own backyard. And millions and millions and millions of Americans with zero gardening experience learned how to garden from those pamphlets. Unfortunately, gardening seems to have become less and less of a thing here in the United States for a variety of reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now, but gardening is not hard. It's not. I don't think it is. If you guys think it is, leave a comment below. Let me know why you think it's hard, but really, I don't think it's hard, and I think it's something that everybody should try. You can just put a couple of plants in a little pot, maybe on your apartment balcony or sunny windowsill. You don't need 2 acres of property. You don't need an acre of property. You can garden in a little 4x8 bed. Gentleman Hugh Richards, I believe his name is. I'll put the book up on the screen. Veg in One Bed, and he literally teaches you how you could take a 4x8 bed and grow vegetables and herbs all throughout the year. Not terribly difficult. Lots of people have written books about it. There's a ton of knowledge out there nowadays with the internet, with books, with all sorts of stuff. So I think I'm going to end my rant there. This video has probably gone on way too long. Please leave your comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. I don't know what the next video is going to be. There's so much to do around here in the garden. Maybe we'll plant out a bunch of salvias, because I do have a ton of salvias to plant out, and I have a whole nother garden bed to open up and to plant stuff into. So I'm going to do one or the other in the next video, I think. So until then, I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.